Hello everybody, today we're going to be ranking all 7 stories from Doctor Who Season 5. Now, this is entirely my opinion. Your ranking probably won't align with mine, but there's only 7, so it's possible that it's going to be pretty close. There are also going to be some spoilers within this video, so if you haven't seen all of these stories and you are worried about that kind of thing, then yeah, feel free to not watch this one. And with that established, let's get started in my personal ranking of Doctor Who Season 5. The Wheel in Space was always going to come last because it was the one that did the least amount of interesting things in it and just went on too long. There are other 6-parters within here, but this one just kind of feels like it's not doing much. The Cybermen aren't particularly involved in the story, and while I do appreciate that it tries to do something a little bit different with them than was done earlier in this same season, it is a shame that they aren't much of an intimidating foe in this story. They're just kind of there. The best part about this one is the introduction of the new companion, Zoe, and I like the way she's introduced in this story. But outside of that, there's not much to remember in this one. The Abominable Snowmen. This is a enjoyable story. I like it. I like the way that we are guided through this journey, and it's a pretty fun one, and I obviously enjoy our main characters in it, but the villain is a little bit lacking, and that's why it is lower on this list, because while I do have fun with this serial, the Great Intelligence can be a little bit over the top, and the Yeti aren't used as well as they will be later in this season. So this one, it was good, it was enjoyable, there was stuff to like, but on the whole, it is, while more memorable than The Wheel in Space, still not a particularly noteworthy adventure and doesn't have that much happening. Now, it could be down to it not actually existing, but there are cases later on this list of stories that do work with just the audio, so this one sadly comes in pretty low because it just doesn't do that much, even though it is a pretty good one. The Ice Warriors. Now, it was between the Abominable Snowmen and the Ice Warriors on this list. They were basically neck and neck, and this one I just found did slightly more interesting stuff. The Ice Warriors are a little bit more memorable as a villain than the Yeti or the Great Intelligence. They work well within this story, and while towards the end, that is kind of lessened in learning that their motivations are more simplistic than one might hope for, I particularly like what's done towards the beginning as they are introduced and they present themselves as a legitimate threat to our main characters. That's all handled really well. And all 3 of these stories that I've just talked about were 6 parts long, and in none of these cases did they really need to be. This one is the story where I least felt that, but probably all 3 of these could have worked as 4-part stories and would have ended up higher on this list had they just been a little bit tighter or had a little bit more going on. The Enemy of the World, this is one that could have been 4 parts, but didn't need to be because it had enough elements to play with, and when it started to get to a point where it might have to just slow down, they would introduce new things. And that was one of the things this story did great. It was an excellent spy thriller that I had so much fun with, and they did a really good job of balancing everything out and pacing the story throughout these 6 parts. It's really well done. Basically, everything in this one is really well paced. I love seeing Patrick Troughton get to play not just a great doctor, but a great villain in Salamander. His chemistry with Jamie is great. I do enjoy Victoria for the most part, and this one just works really well and also does a great job of breaking up this season, which is mainly monster stories, with this one which is just a ton of fun and feels very different from everything else within this season. The Tomb of the Cybermen. What a great Cyberman story. So enjoyable, so much to love about this one. I just love the way that the Cybermen are introduced. You don't even see them really until the second part. It builds up to them, and then when they get there, they actually do interesting stuff, and they present them as a legit threat to these characters. And the Cyber Leader works really well in giving the Cybermen a little bit more of a focused villain, because you have all of these Cybermen, but then you also have that Cyber Leader, which, kind of helps to make the threat not just be this mass of, zombies or something like that. There is an individual in there that is presented as the leader. And while some of the supporting cast isn't the best, basically everything that's done with Cybermen is great, and they work so well, and this one is paced really well at 4 parts long. It does an excellent job of keeping you invested and just not wasting your time at all. I really, really enjoyed this one, and I thought it was a great start to this season. The Web of Fear. This is another 6-parter, and one that does its job really well at pacing things out and making it feel very different from the rest of the season. Even from the start of the story, you get this atmosphere and this sense that it's not the same as what has come before. The music that is used in this one is really good and really works in selling the tone that it's going for, and I love the use of the London Underground throughout this entire thing, and that really helps to make the Yeti a much more intimidating threat than they were were earlier in the season. It's a really well-directed story, and the Yeti are used so well as a villain, and of course our main characters, great as always. And this one really feels distinctly different from the other stories that you get out of the Second Doctor's era because of how well the Yeti are used as a villain and how well this is directed, and just the style and the atmosphere and the tone and everything about this contributes to a really great story. Fury from the Deep. It could not have been anything other than this. What a stellar episode. This one is entirely missing, and it works so well. It's so claustrophobic, which is amazing because you can't even see what's going on, but you hear it, and there's this incredible score which really builds and builds. It's got this like heartbeat in it that works so well in keeping this kind of tensity and making you focused in what's going on. This could have been a very ordinary story, but through some really just excellent music and atmosphere and claustrophobia, it is a truly memorable one, and I just love this story. It's also a good send-off to Victoria, who had been a little bit mixed throughout this season, but had an exit that really worked. And it's amazing to me that Seaweed and Foam are presented as such a great villain in this. It's just incredible because it shouldn't work, and it really, really does, and everything just adds together to make what is an incredibly memorable story without even being able to see it. And based on the surviving clips that we have seen, it looks like it really would have worked had we also been able to see it. I absolutely adore this one, and this is, to me, the definitive story from Season 5. And that's that. That's my ranking of Season 5. I hope there were some surprises in there, but be sure to let me know your ranking of Season 5 down below, or if you haven't seen the whole season, just the ranking of the episodes that you have seen, if you'd like to. And I do hope to see you around this upcoming Sunday for a review of The Dominators. We're getting right into Season 6, only 7 more stories left with Patrick Troughton. I cannot wait to discuss all of these with you and bring you my thoughts on his final season. I hope to see you around for those reviews, but if not, that's totally cool. Just know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and have a lovely week.